Menglong's final moments, shocking injuries exposed before cremation, what really happened in those last hours, and what dark truths were hidden from the world. The mystery surrounding his death has left fans trembling with unanswered questions. Tonight, Red Carpet Revealed takes you behind the curtain to uncover the secrets they never wanted you to see. The world of entertainment thrives on glamour, on the sparkling illusion of perfection, and on the carefully crafted smiles of its brightest stars. But sometimes, that shimmering surface shatters, revealing a darkness so unsettling that even the most loyal fans are left breathless. When news broke that Menglong's body, moments before cremation, shocking injuries no one had ever seen before, the global audience of millions was plunged into confusion, disbelief, and heartbreak. What could have happened in those final moments? What secrets did his silent body hold? And why did it take so long for the truth to surface? First whispers began not in official press releases, but in trembling messages shared across fan communities. Outside the crematorium in Shanghai, mourners reported strange delays, hushed conversations between uniformed officers, and the sudden arrival of black vans that blocked the entrance for nearly an hour. Something was unfolding behind those closed doors. Something powerful enough to halt the tightly orchestrated farewell of one of China's most beloved stars. Within hours, fragments of the truth began to leak, Yu's body carried marks and injuries that did not match the official narrative of his sudden death. Journalists scrambled, desperate for answers. Every official statement was short, vague, and carefully worded. All procedures are proceeding normally, one spokesperson said. But normal was not the word on anyone's mind. Fans had already seen the blurred image posted by an anonymous account, a haunting silhouette of Yu's body, pale and still, with what looked like bruises along his arms and faint cuts near his wrists. This is not just exhaustion, the post read. This is a message. The photo was deleted within minutes. Yet the damage was done. Screenshots spread like wildfire, igniting a storm of suspicion and grief. What made this revelation even more chilling was the timing. Just days before the cremation, investigators had discovered a locked dressing room inside the long-abandoned wing of the Shanghai Film Center. Dusty, silent, and forgotten. It held fragments of Menglong's last months, a desk drawer sealed shut, a diary with trembling handwriting, torn contracts, and even traces of blood on a sleeve tucked away behind a mirror. The scene felt less like a shrine and more like a crime scene. Questions that had once been whispered in dark corners now screamed across headlines. Was Yu's death truly the accident authorities claimed? Or was it the inevitable climax of the pressure, coercion, and betrayal he had endured in the entertainment world? Red Carpet Revealed gained exclusive insight into those diary fragments. And what we found was nothing short of haunting. Written in hurried scrawls, some pages nearly torn from the sheer force of his pen, Yu spoke of sleepless nights, of suffocating fear, and of voices demanding obedience. They won't let me rest. One passage reads. Another, even more chilling, if I disappear, remember this was not my choice. These were not the words of a man preparing for peace. These were the cries of someone trapped in an endless cage. A performer held hostage by contracts and faceless figures lurking behind the glamour. The physical injuries on Yu's body echoed those diary entries like silent proof. Sources close to the investigation, speaking under the condition of anonymity, claimed the bruises were concentrated in places inconsistent with simple falls or accidents. They spoke of pattern marks, suggestive of repeated strain, as though Yu had been restrained or forced into violent situations. Yet when these findings were presented in preliminary reports, whole sections were allegedly blacked out before reaching the public eye. One official insisted there was nothing unusual, but others quietly confided their doubts, admitting they had never seen such censorship applied with such speed. For fans, the grief was unbearable. Vigils erupted across China, Japan, and Korea. Yu's work had touched countless lives. In Beijing, thousands gathered with candles, their voices trembling as they sang Hu's songs in unison. In Tokyo, posters of Yu were covered with handwritten notes. We will not forget. Tell us the truth. Justice for Menglong. And in Seoul, digital billboards blazed with his image. His gentle smile now a symbol of both beauty and tragedy. What was meant to be a quiet farewell had transformed into a global outcry. An unprecedented demand for transparency in an industry notorious for silencing dissent. The entertainment world, too, was shaken. Colleagues who had once spoken only in polite phrases began to hint at deeper troubles. One co-star wrote a cryptic post on social media, "We all knew. But we never said. Forgive us." Another, more direct, described you as a brother in chains, smiling for the world while suffering in silence. These words fueled speculation, casting shadows over management agencies, production houses, and even the government bodies that oversee the entertainment industry. If so many had suspected something was wrong, no one spoken sooner. The answer, perhaps, lies in the system itself. Chinese showbiz, like many entertainment empires, is on contracts so strict they blur the line between artistry and imprisonment. Stories of overwork, stars collapsing on set, of young talents disappearing from the spotlight without explanation, all had circulated for years. Yet Yu Menglong's death, and the horrifying injuries discovered before his cremation, seemed to crystallize all these rumors into one undeniable reality. Here was a star whose life was cut short. He carried scars not just of exhaustion but of betrayal. Final diary entries spoke louder than any official statement ever could. Inside the Shanghai Film Center, the abandoned dressing room became an unofficial shrine. Fans broke through police barricades just to glimpse the peeling posters and dusty costumes he had once touched. Among the items recovered, a letter stood out, written but never sent, addressed to a friend whose name was carefully scratched out. In it, Yu wrote of his despair, "Every time I try to fight, they remind me of the contract. Every time I ask for freedom, they remind me of the debt. I am not a man. I am a product. And products can be broken." The words hit like a dagger, raising chilling questions about whether Yu's death was not only foreseen but orchestrated. As Red Carpet revealed dug deeper, and the timeline itself suspicious. Why was the dressing room left untouched for months after Yu's passing? Why were his belongings not catalogued immediately, as is standard practice? And why, above all, did the cremation face sudden delays the very moment officials inspected the body? One source claimed heated arguments broke out between police officers and agency representatives behind closed doors. Another whispered of evidence that must never reach the light. Both seemed tantalizingly close, yet locked behind a wall of silence, leaving only Yu's injuries and his diary as fragile testimonies. Fans became investigators themselves. Forums buzzed with theories, piecing together Yu's final public appearances. They replayed interviews, noting the way his smile faltered when certain questions were asked. They slowed down videos of his last concert, analyzing every twitch, every shadow. They could decode a hidden plea. "Look at his hands," one fan wrote. Faint bruises visible even under stage lights. Was already trying to tell us. Their determination transformed grief into activism, with hashtags like Truth for Menglong and Justice for Yu flooding social media, demanding an independent investigation. With each passing day, official statements grew colder, shorter, and more evasive. Authorities insisted there was no foul play. The agency's repeated phrases about exhaustion and unforeseen complications. Yet the image of Yu's injuries before cremation lingered in the minds of millions, an image that no press release could erase. Silence itself became damning, suggesting that the truth was too dangerous to acknowledge. By the time the coffin was sealed, whispers among the staff hinted at deeper secrets. Some claimed evidence had been removed at the last moment. Others said key witnesses had been pressured into silence. The flames consumed Yu Menglong's body. Many wondered if they were also consuming the last traces of proof. Taunting as that thought was, there remained one undeniable fact: Yu's injuries and diary had already been seen, shared, and remembered. They could burn his body, but they could not burn the truth he left behind. The first part of this investigation closes not with answers but with heavier questions. Who inflicted those injuries? Who silenced his cries? And why did the world only learn the truth when it was nearly too late? As the ashes cooled, one thing became clear: Yu Menglong's story was far from over. In fact, it was only beginning. The injuries on his body were not just random scars, deliberate marks of violence and control. Then Yu Menglong's death was not the end of a tragedy, it was the opening chapter of a conspiracy that reached far beyond one man, threatening to expose the darkest secrets of an entire industry. The flames finally died down and the crematorium fell silent. Many assumed the story of Yu Menglong had ended. Those who had seen the injuries. For those who had read the diary fragments. Zhu had heard whispers behind closed doors. It's clear the story had only just begun. He may have been turned to ash, but the marks on his skin and the words in his journals left behind a trail too dark, too damning, to be ignored. The first true breach in silence came not from officials but from a leak. A medical assistant, too disturbed by what she had witnessed, shared fragments of the preliminary autopsy report with a journalist under conditions of anonymity. The report contradicted every official statement. The public was told of simple complications. The report described deep contusions inconsistent with accidental trauma, linear abrasions resembling restraints, fracture-like wounds of unclear origin. The assistant claimed entire sections were later removed before the final version was archived. They didn't want the world to see it, she whispered. But I saw it. I know what I saw. This revelation rippled through the public like an earthquake. For many fans, it was the confirmation they had feared but already suspected. Menglong had not simply died of exhaustion. His injuries were not random. He told a story of coercion, of violence, of a star who lived his final days as a prisoner rather than an artist. Hashtags reignited. Fan petitions multiplied. And protests began forming outside agency headquarters. The entertainment world, long shielded by money and influence, found itself under a spotlight hotter than any stage could offer. As red carpet revealed continued to investigate, a disturbing pattern emerged. Yu's case was not isolated. In the past decade, promising talents had vanished from the industry under mysterious circumstances, some officially cited as illness, others quietly fading with no explanation at all. Family members dared to speak. They were drowned out by official narratives or silenced altogether. What connected these tragedies was not just the eerie silence that followed but also the institutions behind them, the same agencies, the same production conglomerates, same powerful figures. Digging deeper, financial documents revealed another shocking thread. In Yu's contract, an obscure clause granted his agency the right to claim significant insurance payouts in the event of his sudden incapacitation. Insiders suggested similar clauses existed for other stars. To the public, these contracts seemed like safety nets. Those who benefited, they could become motives. Was Menglong's death not only a tragedy but also a profitable event for those who controlled his career? This possibility drew the attention of investigative journalists and watchdog organizations, many of whom faced immediate obstacles. Articles disappeared within hours of publication. Websites reported sudden technical issues, and reporters were threatened with legal consequences for defamation. The system was closing ranks. As though the exposure of Yu's truth could topple more than just reputations, it could topple an empire. Yet the louder the suppression grew, determined fans became. They refused to let Yu's memory be reduced to ashes. Communities transformed into digital archives, collecting every scrap of evidence, recordings of his last concerts, high-resolution scans of his diary pages, old behind-the-scenes footage that, in retrospect, revealed telling details. In one rehearsal video, he noticed Yu flinching when a manager placed a hand on his shoulder. In another, his smile faltered as he signed documents backstage. Small moments, once overlooked, became pieces of a devastating puzzle. International media soon caught wind of the growing unrest. Headlines in Tokyo, Seoul, and Hollywood entertainment columns began reporting on the Menglong controversy, describing him not just as a rising star but as a martyr of systemic exploitation. The case became symbolic, a rallying point for those who had long criticized the unchecked power of entertainment agencies. If this can happen to Menglong, a columnist wrote, it can happen to anyone. The industry itself began to fracture. Some insiders, emboldened by the public outrage, started speaking anonymously. A former assistant revealed that Yu had begged for rest months before his death but was denied repeatedly, pressured to maintain appearances for international projects. Another insider admitted to seeing Yu escorted by security after heated arguments with his management. The phrase escorted suggested something darker than mere discipline. It suggested captivity. Perhaps the most damning testimony came from a fellow actor, who, under the shield of anonymity, claimed Yu had confided in him about threats. He told me, if I stop, they will take everything from my family. Speak, I will disappear. That confession, recalled now, painted the injuries on his body in an even darker light. He was not just suffering physically, he was being systematically broken. punished for daring to resist. Still, the official silence persisted. Authorities issued curt denials, insisting there was no evidence of foul play. But the public was no longer convinced. Silence was no longer protection, it was complicity. The more they ignored, the louder the outrage grew. Fans organized global vigils. Some projected Yu's face on skyscrapers, while others turned his songs into anthems of resistance. What began as mourning had transformed into a movement that demanded not just truth for Yu Menglong but justice for all those silenced before him. And yet, as powerful as this movement became, danger remained palpable. Online accounts that spread too much information were suddenly suspended. Protesters were dispersed. Families of whistleblowers reported intimidation. Machinery of censorship worked tirelessly, desperate to bury the story before it consumed those in power. But the truth had already slipped free, living in the scars described by the autopsy, in the words etched into Yu's diary, and in the millions of hearts unwilling to let go. As weeks turned into months, the legacy of Yu Menglong shifted. He was no longer just remembered as an actor and singer. He had become a symbol of resistance, a reminder of the price paid by those who dared to shine too brightly under a system built on control. His final words, scribbled in the diary discovered in that abandoned dressing room, resonated as both warning and prophecy. If I disappear, remember this was not my choice. Choice was taken from him. But his voice echoed louder than ever. From Beijing to Los Angeles, from Seoul to Paris, people repeated his name not in whispers but in shouts. Documentaries began production. Advocacy groups formed coalitions, and legal teams prepared petitions demanding an independent inquiry. The pressure built so intensely that even the authorities, so confident in their silence, began to crack. So, the question remained, what truly happened to Yu Menglong in those final hours? The bruises, the cuts, the words of fear in his diary, these were not coincidences. They were clues. Clues that pointed to an industry-wide conspiracy. A system that profited from silence and punishment. Body before cremation was more than a corpse, it was a testimony. A testimony burned by fire but immortalized in memory. For red carpet revealed. This investigation does not end with ashes. It continues with every question left unanswered, every witness silenced, and every fan who refuses to stop searching. Menglong's story is not one of despair but of defiance. His final moments, though horrifying, have sparked a reckoning, forcing the world to confront the shadows lurking behind the spotlight. As the curtain falls on this two-part exposé, truth stands unshaken. Yu Menglong's death may have been orchestrated, his body scarred, his voice suppressed, but in that silence created a storm. And storms cannot be silenced. Yu Menglong's story is more than the tragedy of one man. It is the mirror of an industry where beauty often hides brutality, where applause drowns out cries for help. Silence is bought at the cost of human lives. Final moments, his body marked with injuries, refilled with fear, force us to look directly at the shadows behind the glittering lights of showbiz. Though his body was turned to ash, his truth burns brighter than ever. Every bruise, every whispered note, every fan who refuses to forget ensures that Yu Menglong is not gone. Has become a symbol, a voice that cannot be silenced, and a reminder that justice may be delayed but cannot be denied. As red carpet revealed, we vow to continue shining light on the darkness, to pursue every unanswered question, and to honor Yu's legacy not with silence, but with truth. His story is not the end. It is the beginning of a movement demanding transparency, accountability, and humanity in an industry that too often forgets its stars are not commodities, but people.